This is about a minute after I've made the last video, and I figured, you know what, I can't leave you with all these little videos and bits and pieces. Maybe I should sum it up into a whole process to say that how does your world work? Okay, so basically we talk about the reality method shape. That's what your reality looks like, and this distribution of interest, if you add that to it, it'll give you it'll show you how your world works, and you can see this is the cup of your life. So that is the very first one. Then we talked about random influences that influence your life either negatively or positively. We talked about the interest that you have, this being the distribution of interest, where few people on top has a deep understanding of a particular topic, and a lot of people at the bottom has no understanding of the topic. So the distribution of interest makes this initial part in any new subject that you're learning hard, and the top will be, you will perceive it as easy. It'll be easy, like a lawyer starting to learn about law. Jeepers, the amount of volume of people doing, I don't know, this, that, the other, disputes essentially. All that history has to be learned in the beginning, and if you're an experienced lawyer, then you've kind of got that in your head, and your job is so much easier to have a look at. So the external influences in your life times the internal interest that you have basically gives you a contribution to society, and it is either a high level of contribution or a low level of contribution. Okay, so that was shape one, that was video one that we talked about. Video two that we talked about was about same thing. These same stories, external influences which you don't have control about. The understanding here is that the top is positive, the bottom is negative. We talked about chaos theory here. Didn't talk about the theory yet, but really we'll talk about that somewhere else. But basically it's the same thing. Positive at the top, negative at the bottom. And the interest, external, the internal capacity that you've got kind of fits in with that one over there. We're now starting to layer them off. I'm just using them separately. That interest basically gives you a high level of interest on something that will essentially give you a perception of your life where there's a lot of value at the top and low value at the bottom. And if we look at this as a subject, then external things happens to you. You've got an internal capacity to deal with those things. And if you don't deal with them, it'll run through there. If you do know how to deal with them, you'll influence your life there. And if something good happened to you, it'll kind of go there. And sometimes, of course, something good happens to you and we treat it badly, and it can kind of have a direction there. So we'll play with those, what I call lifelines, to understand how something that you don't control influences how you handled it and how that has an effect on the things that happens. And then we talked about video number 3, which I mistakenly called number 2, and that one talked about the same shape. Once again, it's always the same shape, and we talked about here, the topic here was time with past, present, and future. And the understanding here that there was an A part and a B part connected to that. And the A part was about past and present, which will give you hindsight, and we can populate our hindsight perfectly. Well, not perfectly. It turned out that memory is the memory you've got of a particular event is essentially the memory of the last time that you thought about that event. So conceivably then the event in itself had a particular reality, and you've changed that reality through memory constantly up into the last version of it that you've got. So that is hindsight, past and present connected. I am worried about stuff that can happen based on my experiences constantly. So that nostalgia, that idea that living in the past is not good for you. What I'm suggesting here is that we appreciate the past for the things that it's contributed to us we can use for our future. We take that and we shift the thing into present and future. And basically what I'm saying is that we can't predict the future, right? But we can suggest the future. And we talked about that process. So your life either is constantly, or a majority of it is in this thing where you have hindsight and nostalgia and, you know, this didn't happen for me, that didn't happen for me, or I wish such a person was still in my life and, you know, now I don't know what to do and all that. That is where that fits. I'm suggesting that instead of having a life that lives in the past, you are shifting the thing to have a life that considers your potential future and you live in the present, because this is how you create that future. Okay, and then we moved over to, so this one kind of moves there, and then we move over to video number 4 where we said, what do you want? Understanding the importance of what we want, which we place essentially over there, and then we have a look as to what has to happen for that to be true, and then we have to kind of figure out what do we need to do to make that one happen, and if we've done that we can move up a level, and what do we do to do that one, and what do we need, and if we've done that, what do we need to do to create that one. And essentially what we're doing here is we're moving ourselves out of a chaos situation, right, and we're moving our level of value in the marketplace up as well. And here's the interesting bit. In the beginning it has to be hard, because I think reality says I have to distribute amongst all these people, right, 7+ billion people, I have to distribute all the content, it's random things, random contents for argument's sake. All the content here I have to distribute to all these people. Here's the deal. For the few that does a lot, I'll give the biggest value. For the many that doesn't do anything with regards to any particular topic here, in all this stuff that happens, I will give no value. So that is kind of how that works. And what do you want is extremely important, especially if we consider, and perhaps I can give that one a name by itself, number 5, the future things like technology that is moving at an exponential rate, which looks like this, whilst we're learning at a linear rate. Exponentials grows like this, and it'll actually pass our intelligence, our abilities to do certain things better than it can in the future, and it's moving towards us. And you've got to understand what you want so that you can figure out what is the area that I want to play in the future, with the hope that you can add value to the marketplace. And that is basically a very quick introduction to reality method. I've talked fast, I've talked loud, I've not done this perfectly, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. I'm going to populate these things, load it onto YouTube, give it to you, do with it what you want. But here's the thing, I would love if you would come on into realitymethod.com, have a look at what we've got. There's kind of how I can sustain the idea of taking reality method to the world, which is kind of what I want to do. And here's the reason why. In fact, I'll give you the reason why I want to take this concept to the world maybe on the next one. So as always, enjoy the journey.